Well, it's Saturday morning, Labor Day weekend 2015, and this is the first Labor Day weekend in a few years, or a couple of years at least, that we haven't been away camping for the weekend, so it's kind of unusual that I'm actually here this weekend. Anyways, this came in this week, so let's take a look and see how we made out here. This is an eBay purchase, and this is the new old stock bushing for the Browning. It's a genuine Browning bushing for that pulley on the lathe. So this is a 7/8 P1 7/8. So P1 is the series of the bushing, and 7/8 is the diameter of the shaft that it fits, which is what my motor is. Right now I've got that 1-inch one on there and a homemade sleeve that's causing it to run out of round, off kilter. Oh yeah, gotta love eBay. Gotta love eBay. That thing's very light surface rust on it. I don't remember if this was advertised as used or new old stock. Judging from the bore, I'd say this is new old stock. There are a few nicks in the outside here though, but the way it was just kind of loose in the box here, jostling around with the new bolts that it came with, who knows. But even if it's used, I don't care. It's a good used one, and it's certainly going to be an improvement over what's going on there now. So yeah, gotta love eBay. 15 bucks shipped. Can't beat that with a stick. This new is like, I think Johnstone has in their catalog for around 53 bucks. So, great. Now I'm pretty confident that that new bushing is going to make quite a bit of difference in the amount of vibration in that top gearbox assembly there, and that should equate to lesser vibration down at the bed of the lathe. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little experiment. I think what I'll do is I'll take maybe a glass of water or a container of water, put it on the bed of the lathe, run the lathe before with the old bushing, and see how much that water is vibrating. Be able to actually see the ripples rather than just go by sense of feel, and then repeat that same experiment with the new bushing on and see how it works. Everybody's still asleep in the house, really early in the morning, so I'm not going to run the lathe now. So I think what I'm going to do is, to kill some time, I'm going to switch my attention to the change, not the change gears, the gear train here on the side. I just put on that little intermediate gear that can be shifted out of position, so you can actually run the lathe for like a facing operation or whatever without running the whole drivetrain. And I'm not so crazy about the way that's working, but I think I'm going to reassemble it the way it was for now and then revisit it later. I'm going to get in position there and show you what I mean. Alright, so this is the gear. It's got this little brass handle on it here, and by design there's a hole in the cover that goes over this so that you can grab this little brass fancy piece on the end here and slide this gear in and out. So the idea is that this is the intermediate gear that allows this gear, which is always turning when the spindle's turning, to mesh with this gear, which goes into the direction reversal system. And then this gear is driving those pinion gears in there for direction reversal, which then decides which direction this inner shaft right here will be turning, and there's a gear that goes on here that then meshes with the rest of the intermediate gears before the quick change gearbox. So I like the fact that it has this feature. What I don't like is that this, couple things, this shaft is loose, and I didn't end up doing anything about it while I had this all apart, mainly because I couldn't really figure out how that was held in there, and I was a little wary about doing something to it, so I just left that. This whole gear thing here is kind of a mystery to me. There's a hole right here. I'm thinking it's an oil hole. Originally I thought maybe it had something to do with locking this in and out. The reason why it's a mystery is, well, there's an oil groove here, so it makes sense to me that that would be an oil hole, and then the oil would get into this groove here, and that's what oils this. What's a mystery to me is that there's a groove going radially around the shaft, and it almost appears to me that its intent would be to have something to do with maybe keeping this captive in its various positions, and I can't figure out how it's supposed to work. And yet there actually does seem to be a little bit of a locking ability. You can actually, it actually feels like it clicks in and out. So not much, but, and you know, now I'm thinking that's just where it's rubbing, where it's the teeth are meshing on the gear, and then where it's not. This is also kind of sloppy on this gear. So what I don't like about this is that this is the engaged position, the running position, and when the cover is on, there's nothing to stop this. Oh, wait a minute, there's a threaded hole in the end of this. I'm wondering if I've got somewhere in the hardware that's left over, if there's a washer and a screw that holds this from being able to come out like this. The other thing, or it may have been missing from the beginning, I don't know. The other thing is, when you push it all the way in, that's supposed to be the neutral or non-running position. And what I'm noticing is the very edge of that gear still meshes with this gear. It's no longer meshing with this one. So I guess that's not an issue, because this is the one that's going to be running all the time. So when it's in this position, it'll be off. But I don't know if vibration could cause this to creep out and start to grab the front of these teeth, start to impinge with the back of the teeth on this. If that were to happen, it would damage the teeth at the edges here. They don't look like they've been damaged. So I don't know, kind of a bit of a mystery. If I do find that I have a problem with this wanting to vibrate out, then what I'll do is I'll fashion some sort of a sleeve that I can slide onto here and keep this in. And it might even be something as simple as, well, quite frankly, I could even stick an O-ring on here, slide it down, and the O-ring would probably give enough tension to hold that in from vibrating out. So I am going to go with this the way it is for now. And then I might have to, at some point, rebush this and rework this. I'd be tempted to find where the gap is on this and drive a small pin in. You know, drill a tiny hole and drive a pin in and pin that. The problem is, depending on where I pin it, it's going to change the position on this, but then again, this thing's moving around anyways. Now, I sure hope that's not something that comes back to haunt me and creates a situation where I'm pulling the headstock again to get to it. Because that appears to be a blind hole that goes into. Either that or it's under the... I can't remember whether or not I could see the back of this shaft when I had this headstock on the bench upside down. Alright, well, for the time being, let's slap this cover on. Oh yeah, the other thing too is this gear here goes on here, and I was going to put this gear on, and then I realized that, well, it turns out that with that gear on, there isn't enough clearance to get this cover on, because this part right here actually sticks down behind that gear and is covered by the big cover that goes over this whole assembly over here. So I'm going to get that on first. I already cut my knuckle. Good thing I'm not a hemophiliac. Hemophiliac. Now there's a $20 word if I've ever heard one. I wonder if if I could spell it. Hemophielic. That's my guess. When I edit this, I'll have to see whether or not I got it. Alright. That's one less thing I can worry about my fingers getting stuck in. Whoa, whoa, here it comes. It's a finger eater. Whoa, whoa, it's almost done. It's a finger eater. Well, how do you like that? You know, now that I'm getting closer to the finishing of the assembly of the lathe here, as I mentioned previously, I have less and less spare parts lying around, so I just went to look in the hardware that I had left for the lathe, and there's only one Woodruff key left, but it's too small for this gear, so that's perplexing. I'm wondering where that Woodruff key came out of. Well, anyways, I guess what I'll do is go to my little handy dandy assortment here and get me a new one. Yeah, see, that's the size that I have left over. But this, there you go, this is the size that I need. I think the original Woodruff key that was in here was modified. Because it's got the curve in it on the back here, the groove, for a Woodruff key. But then it just kind of, it's a square cut right there. This seems like it's the right size Woodruff key, but if I put it in, it sticks out on the end here. It's the right width for the gear, which is interesting because that suggests that this gear doesn't go all the way on. And there is a discoloration on the shaft. This is nice and clean here, and is about 1/4 of an inch where there's no that's weird. It's going to be tight enough that if I put it on, I'm going to have to pull it off. That wouldn't make sense to leave that out like that. It's more likely that this was actually on here wrong for a while. Yeah, that doesn't even line up properly with the gear below it, but I'm thinking that's how it was when I took it off. So I've got there's a nasty burr on there. That's what happened. Somebody had this off. There's a nasty burr on there. They stuck this back on. Didn't fit properly. So they just left it like that. They probably could, maybe that's why they had the weird size. Maybe that was the Woodruff key I took out and it was just the wrong size they stuffed in there. Yeah, that was weird. Somebody did that. I'll tell you what, this might be another situation where there's a washer that goes in here as a spacer. That was on the outside of the case when it was supposed to be on the inside. Maybe. So I'm going to clean this shaft up, get rid of this burr, so that the gear goes on properly. Because if the gear goes on all the way so that this end right here is flush with this, which is what, then that's the perfect alignment for that gear down below there. Hold on, what the heck's going on here? Yeah, that's right. Like that. Right like that. This is right here. Wow, not much clearance there before this gear starts to hit this. Tight tolerance. This Woodruff key is the one that I had left over. This looks like, from the markings on it though, that it was in a very deep. That's that makes sense. There's actually a ghost line on here, and it's kind of close to the top, and it doesn't make sense because it should be, you know, further down, but it does if they stuck it in here. Alright, so there's something we can correct. Get rid of these washers that I was using for spacers up here, since I put that bearing in as a spacer. I don't need them, and I don't need them to be another thing that shows up laying around here later having me scratch my head. Oh, where did these go? That's the ticket. Maybe this key is too big. Alright. 1/4 inch by 7/8. It's got to be the right size. So that must mean this is going to have to be trimmed. I'm going to have to modify this. That must be why they had the next size down in there. Probably lost the original one. Whoever had this off probably had before me probably lost the original one, and then we just kind of winged it. Oh, wait a minute, hold the phone. Maybe there's a key size that I don't have in that kit. Alright, so that's 1/4 inch by 7/8. So if there's a 1/4 inch by half Woodruff key, that's probably what I need. Well, I just checked the chart online that I found, and they make a 1/4 inch by 3/4, which I do not have in this set. 1/4 inch sizes I have are 1 1/8, 1 inch, and 7/8. Then it drops down to 3/16 thickness. So between here and here there's a size that they do make that I don't have. So let's see if I can pick one up at the hardware store.